Welcome back to Reunited States, the podcast where we bring rational discourse back to our national dialogue. From Manchester, New Hampshire, my name is Jesse Saywell.
And from Los Angeles, California, my name is Tyler Ehrig.
And we have to start off today with two tragedies that have taken place in the last couple of hours. And by the time you're hearing this, you will likely have more information on what has happened, but we're going to provide our own thoughts about it. The first of which is that there was a shooting in Colorado in a high school outside of Denver that has left 3 people in critical condition. Don't have much information about that, but of course, another school shooting in this country, America's favorite pastime, school shootings. It's September. Like, how many have we had since the beginning of the year now? Like, it's actually...
It's in triple digits, I think. It's like...
Yeah, since the beginning of the calendar year, but like in September for the school year, like it feels like just since school came back, we have had, shootings at colleges, shootings at high schools, shootings, of course, the terrible shooting in Minnesota. Our hearts go out to these people. I mean, what can we say other than this is so messed up that we live in a country where this can happen? And the second story, and one that, in fairness, it should be just as... the first story should be just as big a story as this one, but this one is inherently going to be more of a story because of who was involved. The conservative activist Charlie Kirk was shot just a few hours ago at Utah Valley University. He was at one of his stops on his kind of tour of universities around the country. He does this. That's kind of what he became really well known for, was touring colleges and universities last year and debating with college students. He has made a brand off of that. But he was shot. There is video of it. We do not know his condition at this point, but we can assume that he is either in serious condition or potentially may not have survived this shooting.
There is a video of it. I mean, we watched a video just a few moments ago before recording this.
I don't recommend it.
Do not. Yeah, it's not a easy thing to watch. But I will say, not a doctor, but it looks pretty fatal to me. I mean, the guy was shot right in the neck. It looked pretty bad.
Yeah. So you will, I'm sure, by this point in time, know more about the state of Charlie Kirk than we do right now as we're recording this. But I just want to say that regardless of politics, regardless of differences in viewpoints, regardless of the fact that I find much of what Charlie Kirk to have said publicly as recently as last week to be racist, to be misogynistic, to be deeply, deeply harmful to the institutions of government, to the institutions, that everything that I believe makes America America. I'm not celebrating this, and I don't think you should be either, because that's what the people that we always get so mad at do, right? When we talk about the far right and the extremists in the casual way and cavalier way, they talk about violence, and we talk about groups, extreme groups, when we talk about, white supremacy groups and things, and you see that sort of commentary online and the things that they say in these situations when people are targeted or when people are attacked or killed or whatnot in these instances. I do not want to be the person to cheer this. And I have to say that because I get the instinct. I get that there is an instinct out there for many of us who see someone who has actively promoted what, the irony of this, has promoted policies and a belief system that I think has continued to enable gun violence in this country. And there are quotes that are already going around, things that Charlie Kirk has said in the past about gun violence. But that does not mean that I believe that he should be dead. I don't. I don't believe that anyone should be gunned down. Whether that, I said this about Donald Trump last year, and I'm going to say it again about Charlie Kirk. We are in a new era right now. We're in an era of violence in this country, and political violence. And it really resembles, as I've said now several times, it resembles the IRA and the fight in Northern Ireland. It resembles fights that existed in places like South Africa previously, and violence that existed in those places. This feels like, in many ways, a style of violence that is very new to us and also not new at all. If you look at the history of this country, there has always been political violence in this country. There's been so many assassinations of our leaders. There's been, members of Congress attacked each other during the height of the debate over slavery. The country was founded upon tarring and feathering a group of tax collectors from Britain. And was founded, really in a violent fashion. So it is a great American tradition in many ways, whether we like it or not, whether we think it was justified in some instances or not. It is a great American tradition that we handle our disputes and our differences with violence. And that's a human tradition. It's not unique to the United States, but I think that we have for many years thought that we were above this sort of thing. And so, again, as we said, both about Trump, we said this about the CEO last year of the healthcare, United Healthcare, when Luigi Mangione murdered that man. I can't condone it. I don't care what side it's on. I don't like Charlie Kirk. I think that he's a damaging force in the world. But our legal system and our rights allow you to do the things that he has done. And I am more concerned about infringing on people's free speech or people being afraid to speak their mind. So I, as Voltaire said, I may disagree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. That is how I feel. I feel very strongly that people should be able to say things that I disagree with, that I do not like, that I find offensive in this country, assuming that they are not actively breaking a law in doing so, of course. And I don't like Charlie Kirk, but this is not the way that we're going to fix this country. Gunning down people. I don't care who it is. There is no singular person that you can gun down. There is no series of people that you can gun down that are going to fix the divisions in this country. This will only exacerbate those issues. And I can assure you, this person probably thinks, whoever this is, thinks that they have done the country a service. You have not. You have not done the country a service. You are going to endanger the lives of other people by perpetuating this violence and legitimizing. It is a legitimate claim now that this violence does not come solely from the political right. It also very much comes from the political left. And I don't think that there's any way to believe that this either attempted or successful assassination of Charlie Kirk was not politically motivated. Like, is there any way that we could believe that to be the case? If it was at a political rally, he is a political figure, I can't see any other motivation for it. We don't know who did this. They said that they had arrested a suspect, and then now they said they actually haven't arrested a suspect, so we have no information on any of this. Again, you may know more, and almost certainly will know more by the time you're hearing this, but the discussion needs to be said either way, and that I think this is deeply problematic and troubling, and I wish it didn't happen. I don't like Charlie Kirk, but I really wish that this didn't happen, and I wouldn't wish this upon him.
That was well said. I don't like Charlie Kirk either. I think I've spoken out against him enough times, both here and in other places. But you're right. To use a kind of spiritual argument here, we as human beings, my belief, we as human beings don't have the authority or the right to deal out death in judgment. We don't. Like, that's not a decision for like a single human being to make. We don't have that authority. I don't believe we do. It's life and death are, whether you're a religious person or a non-religious person or just a spiritual person or none. You know, I think it is a very worldwide belief from religions and spiritualities across the world and across human societies that life and death do not belong to man, you know? Like, life and death belong to kind of like, whether it's God or the cosmos, the universe, the spirits, whatever. Literally, you can give these to any kind of like ethereal concept. But there's, again, like in nearly every religious or spiritual practice across Earth, that is a fundamental constant. Is that the province of life and death is not like for man, you know? It's like it belongs to a greater thing, and it's not for us to, you know, to take the reins of that, because as we've seen it across human history, violence and death only begets more violence and more death. You know, there is no like, this death stops all violence forever. Like, that's not true. That's demonstrably false. There is no single death that would stop violence. There is no single act of violence that would stop other violence. It's not true. Violence only creates more violence. Death only creates more death. And so even for someone that you disagree with, someone that you hate even, someone that you feel is a stain upon society if you feel that way, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because the only thing you are doing is provoking more violence by enacting violence. That's really the only thing you're achieving here. To people who take this and say, well, you know, there's a political factors involved, I'm like, hold on a second. Now, wait just a second. If you're going to say that somehow violence is rationalized by political philosophies, let me tell you one thing. Martyrdom does not kill an idea. Martyrdom immortalizes an idea. Martyrdom puts it on a pedestal and makes it right. So no, if you're going to come at me and say, well, people who say disgusting things like that, sometimes, you know, there's a karmatic, you know, consequence to that. No, because the only thing that achieves is legitimizing their beliefs. So you are not stopping an idea. You're legitimizing it by enacting violence on someone who is quite literally the embodiment of that political idea and philosophy. So don't even think from that angle that there is some justice or justification for this. There isn't. There is no good thing that's going to come out of this. Nothing. Because there will be more. There will be another guy that pops up, and he'll be worse.
Yeah, and the next time that there's a mass shooting, it'll be someone that you care about, you know? It'll be someone on, quote-unquote, your side. But we should all be on the side of ending violence, right? If that's the goal, with our mindset relating to whether it's gun control or changing laws or changing hearts in this country, that should be the goal. And you can't cure violence with violence, right? That just has never happened in the history of the world, right? You can win wars, but this is not a winnable war, right? Like, this is not the sort of thing where it's like somebody's going to win over the other. We're just going to keep killing each other back and forth, right? For a very long time, with no end in sight, unless we actively start trying to promote an off-ramp. Promote an off-ramp from this violence. If we start trying to address and condemn this both on the other side as well as our own side. And so you're just never going to hear me applaud someone for doing an act of violence. I can't justify that.
And no one should applaud people who
and
commit acts of violence. That's the fact.
And I'm seeing that already. I'm seeing it on social media. I've got texts from friends of mine who have already said, ding dong, the witch is dead. Like that's, and I have responded with, I don't think that's appropriate. I just don't. I don't think it's appropriate. I think that that's counterproductive. I understand that we're all,
Listen, I get it. I get it. I will say this. I understand. I understand grappling with that emotion. I grappled with the emotion when I saw the news too. I will be fully honest. It was a grappling thing. It's violence. It's bad, but it's somebody. But when it's somebody you really don't like, there's always going to be some part of you that grapples with how you should feel in this moment. I think it's important to admit that, because you have to kind of admit that in order to understand better, what you should be taking away from this, right? And what is the real lesson in an act of violence? So yes, I mean, people shouldn't be saying these things. I get it. Under the veil of social media, it's very easy to say whatever you want. In fact, on literally the video of him getting shot, there's like a pouring of comments that a lot of them are very, horrifically celebrating, this act of violence, which is terrible. Absolutely do not condone those comments. But, in a way, it's understandable that there is a battle that I think many people are going to have. The same way when Trump was shot, there are people battling that emotion too. You got people celebrating, and I understand there's a fight that happens when you're trying to rationalize how to feel about something that is controversial in that way, even within your own self. So I get that. But when you are in your own thoughts and grappling with how you should feel about this event, understand that is a normal thing to feel. But what's more important is learning from that, learning what that means and what you should be taking away from that. And again, to me, which we have already said, what you take away from that should be that even for the most vile person in your brain, even for the most terrible person you can think of, violence is still violence, and violence is still inherently something we should denounce.
Yeah.
Even if it's somebody we truly, truly dislike or even hate.
Great point. Off of that to hopefully, well, maybe not less depressing, but less depressing than death. Tyler, you want to talk about the Supreme Court decision that has come down that has set off a lot of people in recent days, and one of them being a scathing dissent from Justice Sotomayor.
I do. And in fact, this was going to be our main topic of today. Weird shift of emotions, because I'm very angry about this. So we go from solemn to a very angry and heated conversation that I'm about to have about this Supreme Court decision 25A169. Okay, so there was a Supreme Court decision, number 25A169, that came out on September 8th. That is 2 days ago from the day we are recording this. This is Kristi Noem, Department of Homeland Security versus Pedro Vasquez Perdomo on applications for stay. This is an ongoing legal battle that we have been fighting against the Trump administration's unprecedented attack on citizenship rights and the status of legal immigrants in this country. And of course, the DHS's attempt to remove these legal people along with, undocumented folks, which they claim they are only targeting, but are very much not only targeting.
What? They're lying?
Who would have thought, right? Who would have thought? The Trump administration lies. Wow. So, So U.S. immigration officers were given the order to start making investigative stops in the Los Angeles area specifically. And these stops would be based on the following factors, or a combination of factors. It could literally be just one. It is either A, the presence at a particular location, such as a bus stop, car wash, day labor pickup site, agricultural site, or the like. 2, the type of work one does. 3, whether or not they are speaking Spanish or speaking English with an accent. Or 4, the apparent race or ethnicity of this individual. And if there is a reasonable suspicion of any of these things taking place, immigration officers had the authority to stop them, to interrogate them, and to detain them if they felt necessary, until they were given proof of their immigration status or citizenship status in the United States. This is horrific, first off. The district court enjoined officers from making these types of stops. They told them, you cannot do this. And so the Department of Homeland Security took this to the Supreme Court, asking for a stay on the district court's command to halt these stops. In other words, allowing them to continue. And of course, we wouldn't be talking about it if it didn't pass, if the stay wasn't approved, but the stay was approved. Justice Kavanaugh gave the opinion of the court, citing that there is a massive illegal immigration problem in this country, that there are millions of illegal immigrants staying in the country per their assumptions, and as a result, this order from the district court to stop created a demonstrable harm to the country as a whole, to the economy, apparently, and to the safety of the country and its citizens. Justice Kavanaugh, along with the other judges that agreed with this statement, concurred that yes, apparently there is some demonstrable harm. I say that like swallowing my breath because it's so false. But there is some demonstrable harm that is occurring both economically and on the basis of safety by preventing DHS from making these, quite frankly, unconstitutional stops. And as a result, they are allowed to continue to do this. I said this already, this is horrific. This is a horrific turn of events for very specifically Hispanic Americans and Latino Americans in the Los Angeles area, and more than likely the rest of the country, if they find some degree of success, whatever success means, here. Because, as I mentioned, the exact wording earlier, the ICE is effectively allowed to stop you based off the color of your skin. That is, quite frankly and quite literally, what the Supreme Court is allowing ICE to do. That was Section 4, or the fourth option, was like, do they look like they are of a certain race that ICE is looking for? And if they are, they can stop you, they can interrogate you. If they don't believe that you can provide adequate citizenship status, they can detain you. They can detain you, a citizen of the United States of America. If you are brown, they can detain you. If you speak Spanish, they can detain you. If you have an accent when you're speaking English, they can detain you. If you are hanging out in a fucking Home Depot parking lot, they can detain you. This is not something that we can afford to let go. This happened 2 days ago. I've seen maybe like 2 people talking about this. And I get it. It's only in one city right now. Well, you know, it's also in like one of the most populous cities in the country and also the world. Like, This is very significant and very, very important and very, very scary for millions of people now. People make the joke, but we are quite literally in 1984 right now. Like we are absolutely cemented in George Orwell's novel. And I don't think it's even a question at this point. When we have rulings like this, rulings that are so blatantly unconstitutional, but because the system works a certain way and Supreme Court is allowed to make decisions based off their interpretation of virtually anything. Interpretation, not fact. And I understand that back when these ideas were founded, there was a adequate intention in having a body of the government whose sole purpose was interpreting the law so that the other bodies of government don't, usurp power and determine the law themselves. We are in a very different position now than back when all this stuff was conceived. Because now we have that same body government that is meant to be completely unaffected by the political strife that happens in the executive and legislative branches of government. They are quite literally owned by people in those branches of government. And I do mean owned, as in these people pay money. There is money funneled into many of these justices for them to rule a certain way. That's ownership. And that is dangerous. And now we are seeing the consequences of allowing that to fester. Not that we could have done anything about it, but to see it fester, this is the consequence of it. Blatantly unconstitutional decisions that allow an arm of the government to detain legal citizens for nothing but the reasonable suspicion that they belong to a very specific minority group. I'm not interpreting things wildly here. Like I almost wish I was. Like I wish I was, gaslighting everyone into getting all freaked out about this. And the sad part is I'm not. I'm quite literally reading text. I am reading text right now of the literal document from the Supreme Court's website. Literally reading the fact. And the fact scares me. It obviously scares me for very personal reasons, more than probably many others listening. But, it's more than just the personal fear that a family member or a friend can be taken away and I might never see them again. The fear is for America. The fear is for the rights that we have been privileged to have and privileged to believe that they're inalienable, right? God-given, as many in government say. Things that cannot be taken away are being taken away. This is unprecedented. And the scariest part of it is I have no idea what anyone can even do. This is not like a call your lawmaker moment, because what the hell is calling your lawmaker going to do? I know you say that all the time, and we should do that for a lot of different reasons. But I'm looking at this like, what the hell? They can't even do anything about this. The lawmakers can't do anything about it. Nobody can do anything about this. Nobody. I've never felt more powerless about something that we are normally pretty powerless on. And yet this somehow feels more powerless, if that makes any grammatical sense whatsoever. This is crazy, man. Like, I fear for the future of our country. I know you said it before. We've both said that. But seeing stuff like this dispels any naive notion that we might stop before things get too bad. We've had this argument. You've told me that I've been naive for thinking like, don't worry, it won't get that bad. And you're right. Because here we are.
Here we are.
I can no longer deny that we are at the too bad part when it comes to the law and the country and our rights as citizens.
Yeah. I mean, I said a couple weeks back, I believe that we currently live in an early authoritarian state. And it is an early authoritarian state that has been allowed to become this way by a hyper-partisan and politically motivated Supreme Court. And, just to quote Justice Sotomayor, I mentioned, her dissent. We should, quote, we should not have to live in a country where the government can seize anyone who looks Latino, speaks Spanish, and appears to work a low-wage job. Rather than stand idly by while our constitutional freedoms are lost, I dissent. I mean, if that's not an alarm, again, Justice Sotomayor has been ringing the alarm bells now. We used to love, RBG. RBG's dissents were like this scathing dissents of the conservative court and the things that she said. Certainly Sotomayor has taken up that mantle as the oldest and the eldest liberal judge on the court, but also the first Latino judge to ever serve, a person of Latin American descent to ever serve on the Supreme Court. And this is a serious warning. This is a very scary time, and we live in an authoritarian state. We live in the early stages of an authoritarian government. And it is going to get worse. It is going to continue to get worse, and if you're not afraid, you should be. And I've been saying that since before Trump was elected. We have been moving towards this, and I'm not even sure that if Kamala Harris had been elected a year ago, that we wouldn't end up in this place one way or the other at some point in the coming years. Like, this obviously escalated it accelerated it, but there is a large portion of this country that has taken over one of the two major political parties in this country that believe in authoritarianism. They no longer believe in democracy. They no longer believe in one person, one vote. And they are wielding governmental power in a way that it was never intended to be used, in a way that it has never been used before. And they are doing so with the goal of remaining in power forever. And that's where we are right now. I cannot speak to whether they will be successful, but I can speak to what they are doing and what they have done and how well they have accomplished their goals in the last 10 years.
I was going to say, they might not have complete success yet in the way you're saying, but they definitely have been successful in their battles getting there.
Yeah.
They are Alexander the Great, just winning, and we're here suffering the consequences of this.
Yeah.
I say Alexander the Great, they're not great.
No.
I was telling this to somebody today, who was kind of like, oh, do we have to talk about this? I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, we do. I have so many friends and colleagues that are, and I respect this, non-political. They don't want to involve themselves with politics. They don't want to have to stress about it. They don't have to think about it or worry about it. And they want to live their carefree lives. These are people both affected and less affected by the current political administration. That's honestly, doesn't even really play a part. It's kind of across the board. There's just lots of people who rather just not think about it, not have to talk about it, not know anything about it. And I'm sorry to those people. I'm sorry, but it's time to care about it. I don't think you have the privilege to not care about it anymore. That's the reality of things. You no longer have the privilege to be ignorant, because we are at the point where ignorance is complicity. People have been already saying that, and I've been hesitant to kind of agree and shout that, because out of respect to people who, maybe they don't want to have fucking panic attacks 3 times a day like we do. And I'm trying to respect that. But I'm seeing things like this. Like, this happened 2 damn days ago. I'm seeing decisions like this that are now squashing constitutional rights left and right. And I feel that much more confident now telling those people, I'm sorry, you no longer have the privilege to be ignorant. We are at the point where your ignorance very much is complicity. I don't care if it hurts. I know it hurts. Believe me, it hurts me every goddamn day thinking about it. I get it. But it's the world we live in. We have to care. We have to. You know, like...
Well, apathy is how this has gotten to the point that it is at currently.
Yeah, watch like Zone of Interest from last year, 2 years ago when that movie came out?
Yeah.
About the German family who wasn't aware of the atrocities happening, like, across the street, basically. Watch that film. It's a very stellar example of kind of the struggle with that, but also how it can happen and how dangerous it is.
Look, I've said for almost a decade now that the people I hold most accountable for the state that we are in, beyond the specific authoritarian figures themselves, are the 2016 voters. I've never been able to let it go emotionally. I'm still angry. I am still angry and resentful of the people who said that Trump and Hillary were the same, the people who didn't vote or voted third party in key states because they thought that there was no way Trump could win, even though people were telling you that he could win. The people who abstained, the people who didn't vote, who didn't come out to vote, who didn't support Hillary because we didn't like her, who didn't see the dangers that were right in front of them because they have condemned this country for the rest of my life and the rest of your life and probably the rest of our children's lives. We are going to be dealing with the ramifications of that singular election and what happened in that election. We had a chance to reject a authoritarian style figure, a really, really aggressively problematic political movement. We had a chance to reject it, and we failed. And we failed by a small number that was really just people just didn't come out to vote. People who just kind of, either held their nose and voted for Donald Trump or didn't vote or voted third party for Jill Stein or whoever it was. And I'm angry at those people. I'm still angry at those people. I know who a lot of those people were. And many of them are livid with Donald Trump now. They're livid with what the situation is. But they contributed to this state that we're in. And I'm angry about that. And I probably will be for the rest of my life. I'm a forgiving person. I don't hold that, I'm not going to try and punch down to those people individually at least. But as a whole, I'm angry. And so, yeah. If you're still ignorant 10 years into how bad this is, wake the fuck up. I'm sorry. It's time to wake up. Because this is really, really bad. And we said this last year before he got elected again, and it was the thing that was just driving me insane. This is why I get so mad at the Democratic Party for last year. Because they did not do their job to put up candidates and put forth the best foot to defeat this guy. And they didn't put forth an inspiring message. They have done a failed job at defeating Trump. And it's not just Trump. We understand it's not just Trump. But Trump right now controls the seat of power, right? He has the most power of anyone in this country. He is the most dangerous person to the safety of not just citizens of this country, but the citizens of this world. And we have failed the world. And it goes back to 2016. And that's my soapbox. I'm sorry to rant about this, but it is... I'm still pissed about it.
I think it's understandable to hold that. I would go narrower. And I only say this because I know so many people who were... who either voted for Trump. A lot of them voted for Trump, but also ones that voted for third parties, and specifically in areas where it really mattered. And I've seen them hold that regret. I've seen them hold that regret. I've seen them change the way they vote because of that regret. I know people, many people actually, that voted Trump 2016 because of some veiled lies that they were fed, right? Whatever they want to kind of call it, they were quite frankly fooled. And I've seen
Sure.
people admit it, recognize it, regret it, and change the way they vote in future elections. Vote Biden or vote Kamala. I've known people who did both happily after 2016. So it's hard for me to hold that same grudge kind of like unilaterally. I recognize that that is where it started, and they are, that vote is to blame. I agree with that wholeheartedly. But I think seeing so many, personally at least, seeing so many turn around and recognize and kind of like learn from it gives me kind of a soft spot for many of them. The ones that do regret it.
So do I.
The ones that recognized and have changed their vote for the better. Ones that may have, if it weren't for Trump, may have continued to be voting for conservative candidates for their whole life because there was nothing that changed their mind about that. There was nothing that shocked them out of it. And Trump shocked quite a few conservatives, at least that I know, out of that frame of thinking.
Sure.
And there is, I say value, but I think there is something to say about a lot of those folks that that were otherwise shocked out of their previous methods of voting and have kind of learned from, frankly, their mistake. And they do admit it's a mistake.
And I'm all for. I mean, I say all the time how we can't judge people based on mistakes of the past. Like, people should be allowed to grow and change. And that's why I don't hold hostility against any one group of people, like, or it's one specific person. Like, I know these people, and I have similar people that I'm close with who voted for Trump, changed them. I mean, I know people who voted for Trump, Biden, and then Trump again. Like, I know actually several of that. You know, that's an interesting kind of dynamic in and of itself. But the reality is, as a whole, if I have to pinpoint what led to this, it was that. It was that election. And it was that apathy, that political apathy that existed in young people at the time, in, you know, various communities that are parts of the Democratic base, as well as you know, and of course, I hold Hillary Clinton accountable for it. I hold the campaign accountable for it. I hold James Comey accountable. Like, there's Russia, Putin. There's a whole list of people I can blame. But the reality is the voters have let us down. And they've continued to let us down in this country.
That's that's the kind of thing when I'm really looking at who I can look at them and say, this is you. This is because of you. And it's those people who were apathetic then and continue to be apathetic to this very day.
Yeah,
those people who, when provided with facts, the way we encourage people to provide them with facts, right? With respect, with decorum. You know,
also just provided with 10 years of evidence.
Well, yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, but even doing so, not in a like fuck you kind of way, but in a educational way, like in a way where it's like, hey man, I just want to talk to you about this, you know, and see you at the same level as I, not down, but at the same level, you know, like eye to eye. Even provided in such a way, like I would say, like perfectly communicated, the way we would, you know, encourage people to communicate these things to folks on the other side of the aisle. They still greet it with apathy, and they just don't care. And they will literally say, and I've heard this personally, they would literally tell me, that's nice, I don't care. I simply do. And they'll say it. They won't be angry. They won't yell it to me or whatever. They'll just look at me like, yeah, don't care, man. And that's, to me, it's like, they are the people, and I look at them and I say, this is because of you, man. Like, this is...
tough to stomach that. It's tough to stomach that. And some of them are my very close friends, but really tough to stomach right now, increasingly.
I have no pause in telling them to their face, you did this. Like, this is your fault. You know, like, the civil rights violations, the deaths, all this stuff, the detainments.
Yeah.
This is because of you did this. And you did it, and you didn't make a mistake and regret it. That you knew what you did, and you just didn't care. There is not a single bone in your body that has empathy. And that's fucking scary. Like, I don't want to be in a room with them. But it's also sad, you know? It's sad. And it's the people I can never forgive that level of apathy. How can you? How can you?
It's very difficult. It's very difficult, but I also say, as we say on this podcast, like, if you are condemning those people out of your life, that's also not productive. Like, if the result is to shame them, if your mindset, I mean, again, I have friends that are apolitical, that refuse to vote because they don't think it matters, or they don't think that it makes any difference. And of course, I disagree with them on this. But if I shame them about voting, I'm more likely to push them in a different direction, right? I'm more likely to push them towards the other side than to remind them that, like, I'm a Democrat. I am a Democrat, and I believe that this is why you should vote, and I think this is why you should vote for the Democratic Party over the Republican Party. It's what I believe, and I'm not going to get mad at you if you don't. I'm not going to get mad at you, whatever the situation is, but this is why I think you should. And I think that's the only way I know to approach it that doesn't push people further away, because that's the concern. And
there are plenty of people, and I know we both have people like this in our life, by virtue of that being in our life. There's plenty of people whom you'll never convince them. You'll never get to them because you've tried and you've discussed. But you can still talk to them, and you can still learn from talking to them. And as a result, it's not like this apathetic person who doesn't care about anything. There are plenty of people whom, you'll never convince them otherwise. Maybe it's because they're hyper-religious. Maybe it's for any other myriad of reasons. But but you can still talk to them and learn. You can learn from each other in ways that you guys don't realize. There's still many valuable reasons to keep people like that in your life and to continue to engage with them, not because you believe that you can change their mind because you've tried and you failed and you kind of realize you will never succeed at this, but because you never know. You never know what's going to stick. And they are going to be impacting and enriching your political understanding of the world by continuing to have that conversation, even if your goal is just to try and convince them. You can try, but keep talking to them, because there's just always going to be something that you can learn from that situation.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, I wanted desperately to talk about Fox News and the Rupert Murdoch situation and Lachlan Murdoch situation, but we're running short on...
Kendall?
Yes, exactly. The succession has been decided, but that's going to have to be saved for another week because we are running short on time here today. I do want to just add a final update. President Trump has announced, as well as Turning Point USA, the organization that Charlie Kirk helped to found, they have announced that Charlie Kirk did indeed pass away from the wounds that he suffered in this shooting. So, again, did not like Charlie Kirk from a personal or a political level, but this was not okay, and this is not a good day for America. This is not a good thing to have happened. It's another in the long line of political shootings. And I do just want to acknowledge that Speaker of the House Mike Johnson did say that, quote, political violence has become all too common. This is not who we are, end quote. I would just say this is who we are. Let's stop saying that this is not who we are. This is who we are. This is America. This is what we are doing right now. And Mike Johnson, I also would like it if you were as quick to condemn political violence when it is against Democrats. And you should have condemned some of your colleagues that made jokes about the Democratic lawmakers in Minnesota that were gunned down in their homes with their families. So, Charlie Kirk did not deserve this. This was wrong. I condemn this. Easy. Done. Easy done. I think this was wrong. It would be nice if our politicians would actually call it on both sides. And I anticipate the Democratic Party will condemn this. They should. If I see any of them out there promoting or making jokes about Charlie Kirk dying, you can damn well be sure I'll be calling them out, because I don't think it's okay. All right? This is political violence. Somebody's dead. Somebody's life was ended. I don't like the dude, but I'm sure he had family that cared about him. He had friends. He had loved ones. Whatever the situation is, he's dead. And he didn't deserve to die. That's not what I believe in. I'm not a death penalty person for murderers in the first place, much less, for offending me with your speech.
That's a great point. And let's just not forget that this is going to be a headline death for sure. But at the end of the day, it's still just another victim of gun violence, on a continued line of victims of gun violence. Most recently before him were children.
Yeah. And
this
even
is just
today,
another victim.
Additional children shot in a high school shooting, right?
And
this
so
is a day of violence in America, just another one.
Exactly. And so to Democrats, but to all lawmakers, we are quick to promote gun legislation, gun reform after children get gunned down in school. We should be equally quick when a famous podcaster is gunned down at an event.
Agreed.
It's the same act of violence, and we need the same response. We need stronger gun control. We need gun control for the prevention of deaths like this. So with that, from Los Angeles, California, my name is Tyler Ehrig.
From Manchester, New Hampshire, I'm Jesse Saywell.
And this has been Reunited States.
When the whole world has got you down, and there's no one else around, turn that frown right upside